Welcome to Changing Course. I'm your host, Maya Adam, and our guest today is a global phenomenon in the fashion industry. Naeem Khan has designed clothing for some of the world's most famous people, from Michelle Obama to Beyonce to Princess Kate to Taylor Swift. Beautiful, timeless works of art, and his story is just as beautiful. Naeem moved from his childhood home in India to the US as a teenager, and he seized every opportunity to work his way up in this competitive industry. I think the most impressive thing about Naeem is that despite his enormous talent, his fame and fortune, despite the fact that he was at one point the third most Googled name in the world when he was busy designing the 20-odd outfits that he created for Michelle Obama, he has somehow managed to keep his feet on the ground. So much so, Naeem, that you agreed to give us some of your precious time today and to share some of your wisdom with us. Thank you so much for being here.
Welcome, Maya. I'm so happy to be here with you. We are friends and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Naeem, as I mentioned to you, the theme of this podcast is navigating change. And often that means overcoming the challenges that come with big changes. I'm interested in hearing, what was it like for you as a teenager to move across the world and break through, really become a leader in such a highly competitive industry?
So let me go back to my childhood to make you understand where I came from and where I landed, which was such a huge change. I grew up in Mumbai, India. I was born in a small town called Bareilly in UP, India, which is a one-horse town. It's a small little town. My parents moved to Bombay and I went to school in Bombay. So imagine growing up in India where you're playing cricket on the street, you have friends, you have this happy, amazing life. And the next thing you know is you landed in New York, because I was always interested in fashion, but landed to work for Halston, who was at that time the most important American designer. But not only was he a great designer, but also he had a very big social life. So the parties, the Studio 54, the Warhols, the artists, Basquiat, all of these guys hanging out together. So imagine this little boy from Mumbai. Now I'm in the midst of all this. I did not understand where I was. I didn't even know who these people were. They were like, for me, they were from another planet. So Thank God that I was so innocent and so naive that I fitted in a very good way, because I was not enamored by them, or they loved me for my humbleness or simpleness from where I came from. So fitting in was easy for me. And one of the reasons why it was easy for me was I came from a very loving family. So my mother and my father was such a great base, such a strength to me, that I would talk to them every day. I would tell them what's going on. So having that, solid background really helped me navigate through this crazy New York and that time, which was absolutely insane.
Wow. And Naeem, I noticed that you've done the same thing with your boys. Your boys are involved in your business. You've kept that kind of very close connection with them. How would you advise other people who want to build that kind of solid base and connection with their families? Is there a magic sauce there?
It's nothing crazy magic, but what it is very simple. Simple is, I grew up with love. I gave my boys simple love, respect. I respect you, you respect me. We grew up in a family that we spoke Urdu. Urdu is a language which is poetic. So there is no harsh words in it. If I get angry, I would say something like, listen, you beautiful person, I really am not pleased by you, rather than saying you're not a good word.
Yeah.
So I grew up with that, and bringing the children up with kindness and with love and respect really made them into who they are. And I think it's your deeds more than words. So they saw my wife Ranjana, my ex-wife now, now. Ranjana and me performing, working, love, having such a kind relationship, involved in charity, working hard. And, children grow up with simple you watching you. We are creatures of learning from our parents, but you have to give time, you have to teach them, but not by force, but by, showing them, being a great example, and kindness and love. It was as simple as that.
So it's important that we really walk the walk, not just tell them how to be, but actually model it for them.
Of course, you have to also tell them, but how you tell them is it's how it's done. And I think kindness and love plays a very, very important role.
Yeah.
When you love somebody, they can feel the love. We are creatures where even when you love your dog understands that your way you touch the dog, the way your voice, your tone, everything matters. So with my children, it was kindness. And sometimes I feel maybe I brought them up with too much kindness because this world is a bad place. And that's what worries me. But you know what? I believe in the force. I believe in nature. That I think when you do good, things will be good by you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a beautiful way to live life.
Yeah.
So, Naeem, you arrived, you're in New York, you're working with Halston, and your career starts to take off. Did you ever have a moment where you thought this crazy dream might not come true?
Yes. So let me tell you how it went. So when I worked for Halston, which was incredibly a great learning experience, but learning not only how to cut fabrics, how to drape things, understanding fabrics, things like Halston teaching you that the fabric talks to you. And in the beginning, when he said to me, the fabric talks to you, I was like, how does it talk to you? But you learned over time that fabric really does talk to you because it tells you which way it wants to go. You cannot take organza, which is stiffer, and you can try to drape with it because it won't behave in that way. Each and every fabric will work for you. Even if you change the angle of the fabric, it changes its form. So I learned a lot from Halston, but not only just that, but also like social skills. Coming from India, it's very different than the West. So how to entertain, how to conduct yourself in society. Because when you make clothes for society women, you are going to be invited to those places. How do you conduct yourself? And all that stuff was so important for me that after I left Halston, I started doing the same things, and it really got me far. But to your point, where I felt like, oh my God, will this really happen? Yes, it did. Because when I left Halston, I felt high and mighty because I was working for such a great legend. And I felt I'm going to be 100% successful because the business was great, everything, the timing was right. I leave Halston and I opened up my own studio in Los Angeles. Within 8 months, I was out of business.
Really?
And I was broke. And I thought, what have I done? This is not going to happen. Then within 3 months, I had designed a small collection. I had no money to open an office. I gave it to an agent who brought in the stores, and he booked the first $1 million business for me. And I was only 24 years old. And here I am, 24, first season, $1 million. And I had no money to produce the goods. So obviously, who do you go to? You go to your father. So I called up my dad and I borrowed $300,000 from him to buy the fabrics and to sew them and box them, whatever I had to do. And I went to the factories, I packed the goods myself, I made the invoices myself, and I understood my business from the core. And I did that for a couple of years where I was producing, boxing, designing. The salespeople were the only people, the agents who were selling it for me. So I was back on my feet again. But there was a moment from Los Angeles that I felt, what have I done? Maybe I should have kept my job. But you know what? When you fall and you get up, you learn from it and you move on. And that taught me a lesson how to be.
Yeah, that's so important, learning how to get up and keep fighting.
Yeah, but you know what? Even when I fell, like I said to you, having a great family is so important. When I fell, my mother and my father were by my side. And they gave me so much courage that, don't you worry, you're going to be fine. What do you need? How? Talking to them every day. I think just having the strength from your parents keeps you going. And hence my children, I keep them the same way, because my success I really dedicate to my family and the lessons I've learned.
How lovely. Naeem, somebody quoted you once as saying that your most valuable possession was a hand-mixed curry rub that your mother had created for you. I'm laughing because my mother still sends me Tupperwares with spice mixes. Tell me about that. Where did that love of cooking come from? Is it from your mom?
100%. So, in India, the kitchen is an integral part of your home. And my father, who was a lover of food, but not only did he love food, but he liked food from my mom's hand, because he could tell that this was not cooked by my mother. And having that refined, tasteful family who was so into cooking, and my mother, and I'm the firstborn. So I used to hang out with her in the kitchen, and the staff was, and in India, it's not like you have a blender or everything was freshly bought that day and it was ground that day, it was roasted that day to create these very complex dishes. So, and my mom is tasting each and every blend that goes into several blends make a curry, as you know. So each blend has to be tasted for perfection before it's combined together. And while she's doing that, she would give me a taste and, say, how is it? So you learn from being there. And my mom till today has actually developed a curry powder for me to keep that family taste, which arrives every month or two, so that we have fresh masala, as we call it, to have my cooking done. Not that I eat Indian food every day, but if I eat, it has to be really that good.
Unbelievable. And you love cooking. You also are a great cook, right?
It's for me, it's the same thing as fashion. When you design clothes, the way a dress is cut, to the way the colors are thought through, or the design on the dress to the person wearing it, and the joy it brings to the person wearing it, is the same thing as cooking. From mixing of the spices to final tasting. The final tasting is like wearing a dress, and having my guests over and experimenting different things. I just love cooking. And to me, to have taken Indian cooking and made it simple and made it still so refined was kind of a bit of a challenge and a lot of experiments. But I think I've got it down to, I wouldn't say perfection, but it tastes good.
Wonderful. Yeah. Oh, how nice. Yeah. Okay, so Naeem, sorry to digress into the cooking. It's just such a fascinating shared passion of ours. But if you had to look back, what was one of the big moments in your career where you thought, now I feel I have really made it?
So there were two moments in my life. My first one was coming from India. And when I had met Halston for the very first time and he had offered me a job, I went to dinner with my father. I was only 19 years old when I had got the job. And my dad, I was supposed to go to school, but I got the job. So I can't believe that me coming from India, that I'm going to work in this beautiful place where everybody was so tasteful. It was a burgundy office, mirrors, orchids, everybody dressed in black. You are in the Olympic Towers. And my father and his business partners were going to dinner, and I was with them. I swear, the chattering of them talking business was in the background. My mind was like in a fog, and all I saw, my footsteps on Park Avenue, and the floor was glimmering because there is mica in the footpath, and I was like, oh my God, this is my world was shining for me. So that was like one of the moments I can never forget. Then the other one was when I was asked to design the first date dinner dress for Mrs. Obama, and they would not give me any measurements, and it was like you had to design from total looking at her. And how do you make that dress that's going to fit by just looking at a person? My team and we figured it out from the different fabrics that we use. But that dress was very thought through of the history of my brand. So the simplicity of the dress was Halston. The flower motifs that I chose were inspired from Warhol. The embroidery that I used to embroider those flowers were from my grandfather when I was young, that I used to play around in the factory with my grandfather. So the technique he used to use with sterling silver sequin, hand beaten. Each flower was hand beaten with pure sterling silver sequins and metal. And so using that, it looked modern. The weight of the metal made it kind of come and cling and expand if you wanted to. I mean, it was such a magical dress. The color was beautiful. It was neutral. There was no way that she would look wrong in it. So, and it had the history of me in that one dress.
Wow.
So these were the two important moments of my life, Maya. And apart from the family, of course, my children, my me getting married, those were personal, great moments. But business-wise, my career-wise, those were the two great moments.
Lovely. And in all of those, I see that your heart was really in it. You know, your heart, your story was in that dress. There's an authenticity there.
Of course, I mean, sleepless nights, and you had only 2.5 weeks or 3 weeks to make the dress. Not only have you got to design the pattern, you have to embroider. It takes hundreds of man hours to make it. So my family, my family makes most of my embroideries for me. You can imagine in India, you had like 50 people sitting there and putting everything like day and night, 2 shifts, make the dress in 4 days and ship it back to me. So having a great family, having a tradition, all that stuff, it just made it all happen.
Oh, wonderful. Naeem, as you know, we're in kind of a strange time right now in our world. It's a very turbulent time. We have a global mental health crisis. A lot of young people aren't in a position right now to be able to really, pursue their dreams, or they're just confused about what their priorities are. Do you have any advice for the young people of today on how to find that kind of balance between their dreams and what they want in their personal lives? Any nuggets of wisdom?
Of course. I mean, the thing is, number one, I find that love is such an important thing, right? Be involved with your parents. As your parents are getting older, you need to, like in India, when I grew up, the teachings were that you have to have respect. Respect is such an important part of my life, where either it be nature, either it be my career or my parents. Respect everything that you do, from what you eat, your body, to all that. That's so important. When you are healthy and you have a healthy mind, where you've calmed down and you have a relationship, things will start to fall in place. And of course, your career or your education, you need to pay attention to education. And sometimes, like even when I went to school of economics, but my love for fashion was my love. How did I go from economics to fashion? I learned everything by myself. Even though I didn't learn anything from fashion from my school, I used to read books. I used to watch fashion documentaries or browse through Vogues and Harper Bazaars and try to draw like them. I used to master my own drawings by myself. No teacher taught me anything. I used to sit there. So it's all self-motivated. You have to be motivated by yourself. I mean, you have children. Look how beautiful your kids are. I mean, everyone is so talented, from one being a singer, the other one, business. I mean, everybody's got such amazing talent. And I think it comes from, I've seen people in villages in India, they have not a penny to their name, but they are such incredible people. Well, they will pick up an art and they'll take mud and they'll draw from mud and chalk and nothing else. Take dyes that they make from leaves. So if you have perseverance, you can figure things out. And there is always a path that you're going to find. It's just that you have to look for it and you have to be dedicated to whatever you want to do. I mean, I'm not an expert in being a doctor or a lawyer. I mean, all I know is fashion. But I know fashion in India, there are village boys or girls who will take leaves and flowers and design dresses from nature, and they'll be wearing them. So, you can find art, you can find, your passion in anything. It's all around you. You just have to look for it.
Lovely. That's such great advice. do everything with love and put your heart into it, and then something good has to come, right?
It has to come, and you just have to keep going. It took me many, many years to reach where I am. It just didn't happen. I mean, the few years, 3, 4 years I worked for Halston, then the difficult times when I went through, where even going to the grocery store, there was no way I could buy meat. I would buy the cheap food to make my dinner. So I've been through that, and I know how it feels. And it's just that it's all a learning process, and everything teaches you, but you have to keep searching. And I did not give up. I wanted to be a designer. I wanted to be in fashion. I did it all my way. I had no, the editors of any magazines giving me advice or taking me under their wings. I mean, I made a point that I have to be successful. My success is my retail. When I can sell a dress to a consumer and the consumer likes my clothes, the editors obviously have to come to me. It's not like the other way that I have to show them first and then they come to me. I won the retailers, and that what got me to where I am. And my clothes are real. I make clothes for real women.
Oh, how beautiful. Well, I've seen your beautiful clothing, and it's one piece is more stunning than the next. And I know you've also started doing other kinds of art. I know there's a piece behind you that is actually a collaboration, and it's so beautiful. Yeah. I'm so glad to see that.
Well, thank you so much, Maya. That was sheer out of frustration during COVID. You and I lived in the same building, and I had a friend, Stanley Castleman, who you've met, and Stanley had come to one of my shows, and he said, "Naeem, you are an artist in so many different ways," and he's a painter. So he said, "You need to do something. How you decorate a woman, you can decorate the wall, and you can create pieces which can really talk to people." First, I was like, oh my God, do I have the time to do it? There's no way I'm going to do this. Then, of course, COVID came and I had all the time in the world, and I was frustrated that I didn't have anything to do. I called up Stanley and I said, "Stanley, let's go to your studio. You and me, there are no people, and we're going to paint." And we brainstormed. We came up with the idea of the time when Andy Warhol and I used to spend a lot of time together, because Warhol was great friends with Halston. And Warhol always wanted to do something with what I did, which was my techniques, what I do in my clothes. And he used to do all these diamond dust things, which are all shiny. And my conversations with him were about flowers. One day when I was at Halston's studio, we were working together, and Warhol was there, and he said to me, and I was very young, I must have been like 20, and he said to me, "Naeem, look at this orchid. What does it look like to you?" I said, "It looks like a flower." He said to me, "But can you see more?" I said, "No, what do you mean, can you see more?" He's saying, "Think about it, look at it. If you kept looking at the flower, things started to emerge from the flower. Colors, shapes, forms, it morphed into other things." So, it's the search. When you search for something, you find it. Even in a flower, you're finding 100 things that you can design from. So that flower was stuck in my head, and I decided to do flowers. And these giant flowers, which are made by hand, which is my specialty of sequins and things. And then Stanley paints from the back, because it's on silk screen. And then we have them chromed by a special process. So there is science, there is art, there is lots of stuff in this painting. And we've been very, very successful. I mean, we have our first museum show in Tampa at the Museum of Art in Tampa. And we have a giant installations. And one of the installation is about floating flowers. So when in India, in the Ganges, when in Varanasi, you have the funerals, and your relatives float flowers in the Ganges as a worship or as a ceremony of death. Mm-hmm. And being there and watching these flowers floating in the water and the sun is shining, there's a reflection. And the reflection is silver in the gray water. And it's such a beautiful thing where you have this live flower and there's a silver reflection. So I've done these 2-layer paintings where the behind is silver and the top is fuchsia. And it looks like these flowers are floating.
Wow.
And so, you get inspirations from so many different, about life, about, just art. I mean, I love this. I love my collaboration with Stanley.
How wonderful. Well, I have to say they are stunning. It's like jewels, but bigger than you could ever imagine a beautiful jewel being.
That's
It's
true.
absolutely breathtaking.
Well, thank you, Maya. I love you've got such great taste and you have beautiful art. Thank you for admiring them.
Oh, Naeem, is there anything else that I haven't asked you that you would like to talk about before I let you get on with your day?
I want to say one thing to the young people is that you have to look, especially in fashion, you have to look within you. You need to pursue the career by finding, say you're from Colombia or you're from Mexico. There is so much art there that you need to make modern. I took India's ancient techniques and I made them modern. So I looked from within my culture and I brought it to the West. How do we take which is ancient and make it modern? Using techniques that were made by the Mughals in the 800 years ago that were being used, and I made them to today for today's woman. So look for within you, and you'll find everything within you. Love, art, career, it's so close to you. It's right there. You just have to find it. As simple as
lovely. Excellent advice. Naeem, we are so grateful to you for making the time today. I'm going to ask you, after I hit stop on this recording, to just stay on for a minute for it to upload so we don't lose this lovely recording. And I think you've really inspired so many people today with this great advice. Very, very grateful to you.
Thank you, man. Adore you.
Thank you for listening to our podcast, Changing Course. I'm Maya Adam, and I hope you enjoyed today's incredible discussion with Naeem Khan. We'll be back in the weeks ahead with more fascinating guests as we continue to explore how inspiring people navigate change